Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Digital Marketing Podcast. As always, Alex is joining us. Alex, how have you been? You have been telling me that you've been very busy in these last couple of weeks. That's good, though. That's good.
Yeah, I mean the year started with a bang, so very optimistic and positive. But yeah, you just need to cope with it.
Yeah, that's
Um,
good. Huh? The year started busy over here as well, but it is gonna be a very good year. I feel it's gonna be interesting to see, particularly how everything is going to improve on all of those platforms with the cookieless tracking. But that's not our problem today. That's nice. Today our problem is not tracking. Today our problem is voice search. We want to. I was reading articles actually about the growth that voice search has had in the last 12 months. And clearly, it happened to. I came across a number which was published on November 17th, 2023, which says, at least here in the United States, of course, 77% of adults aged 18 to 34 years use voice search on their smartphone. 63% of the people aged 35 to 54, and the rest of the audience is approximately 27% of the people. Fun fact: when my mom needs to find information, now she talks to her phone, right? What is interesting though is that whenever there is a voice search involved, and that's of course my thought on consumer behavior, is that the search is much more detailed, is much longer tail. Because if we think about that, when we open our phone, you need to type everything. You're probably going to shorten your search a lot because of obvious reasons. Me personally, I speak to people in three languages every day: Italian, Spanish, and English. My keyboard has all of the languages in there, but I need to manually switch them. So sometimes I'm typing in Italian with an English keyboard and I get upset about the typos. So I type very short things when I search to avoid that problem. So, Alex, do you think that voice search is basically then redefining the concept of long tail keywords? Now, long tail keywords might become might have a much higher volume, right?
I mean, I think you're hitting the hammer on the nail. Uh, Number one, it's a lot longer search queries, uh, therefore long tails. There's a lot more opportunities. I mean, the more I also sort of looked in and actually thinking about my own behavior and actually been asking around and just as well around with people, just in terms of how they use voice and if they are even, for that matter, using voice. And to my surprise, I used it a lot more than I actually reflected on because it's just part of your everyday.
Yeah.
And every day and everyone else that I chatted to, they used it as well because it's just a lot easier. I mean, it's even how say WhatsApp even added the function of just dropping voice notes. And
Yeah.
I have certain people on that only drops me WhatsApp messages in voice nowadays. I believe it's because they're driving, among others. But yeah, no, for sure. I think like long tail is having its proper revival, um, and I think we're back to sort of the fun facts of we're like the maverick days of SEO, where you need to be better at guessing or know what the people are going to search for before they search for it, because then you're in an epic position to actually gain some ground.
So, Alex, like one of the things that I like to look at when I think about marketing is that also the psychology and behavior of the consumer, right? So when I think about that voice search, I have a feeling that is more asking questions, like what do I do in this case? How do I do this? How do I do that? With that said, I kind of feel that from an SEO standpoint, providing long tail answers to frequently asked questions becomes vital in appearing in that search query. Because let's be honest, they're not gonna be people are gonna ask questions via voice. That's most of the things, most of the queries.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if you, I think then you can start thinking to yourself, what type of questions are people really asking, and how, what are the complexities about them, and also as sort of a lead up to this, I did some research to this, and it's part of localized optimization in terms of SEO, because a lot of the current sort of stats at least are pointing towards the localization. So like what, restaurants nearby me, gyms nearby me. So there's a lot of nearby questions happening, and then they're not always happening even on a uh, say on a mobile device. They could actually be on an internet of device at home, say an Alexa or a Google standalone that can also help you to get, sort of give answers to your questions. But it's a lot of at home. I need this instantly in my nearby surrounding.
But it could
Um,
also be a search like, how do I remove oil stain from my shirt? That's it. It could be an Amazon product or an e-commerce product, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah,
Alex, I like the local approach you gave to it, because there is one feature that Google has launched. I'm not an SEO expert per se, but I follow things. So I think it was in the last 12 months where Google My Business came up with the Q&A section where you can have question and answers. So basically what you're telling me, that that's a pretty good invite to take advantage of voice search and provide questions and answers there to rank for local searches via voice.
for sure. And I mean, if you really believe in it, and because you would be one of the few, and I think you should, it's worth the experiment. It will be an MVP. I think note to be mentioned here as well. I think voice searches aren't per definition easy to recognize. They aren't really a KPI that they're coming from a voice search today. So there will be a lot of hypothesis, and therefore when you're connecting and doing sort of SEO deep dives, that hey, we're starting to see a certain trend among these very long queries. It's almost like a say a chat GPT sort of prompt that is a lot longer, but we're starting to see them. And I mean, it might not be voice, but most likely it is. And if you're starting to see this trend, there is something on your website that you've done right to attract that, if you want this type of traffic. Um, and I mean, most likely for this to even happen, there are certain like little things that you need to have on your site. Like you need to have a schema markup.
Yeah.
So I think like that's like a prerequisite, even if you are sort of there. Um, so, and then secondly, you should have sort of joined the wave in terms of mobile first a while back, but and your website needs to be fast in terms of loading time because it comes from self. And so if you have a slow loading website, well, that brings a bad UX. You won't really be there.
And Alex, you kind of made me think about something right now. Not too long ago, I have a client that every time he reads an article, I systematically get an email with the link to the article and his questions about the article. I'm sure you have that typology of clients as well. It's fine, it's fun. But one day, I don't do SEO for this client. He has an in-house team taking care of that. And he was like, "Oh, my team told me we need to get ready for voice search." And my answer was, then you probably need a better team. Because my thought was, there is no getting ready for voice search. If you're doing your SEO work correctly, it should already show up for voice search. There is no preparation for it. Maybe you can do some extra work like the Q&A on Google My Business, maybe have a frequently asked questions section on your site, way more in depth, more blog articles around longer tail searches. But in reality, the foundation is the same. The only difference that that search comes from a voice rather than a keyboard, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think I mean, I'll tell you depends on your question that you know either you do right or you don't. I think often when you do SEO, you're very like targeted. You've chosen X amount of keywords, so to use I guess a bit of marketing SEO terminology, but primary keywords that are highly competitive, and then you have supportive secondary keywords that you sort of these are the ones that you're working towards, and you want to create sort of content clusters to really be deemed as almost like a thought leader in this field,
Yeah.
and therefore you might be a bit snowed in on this path because SEO is competitive. There's a lot of people doing it, and there's some people doing it well. But what we're talking about today is a really good, great opportunity for those that have actually just started. Um,
No.
and and I like these type of things. And if one would be open to it, you run something most likely local. You have a Google My Business page. You have a page that works well. You might be great at writing yourself, or you have someone that can write for you. Start with FAQs, and and I mean, you will get there.
I agree. I think it almost looks like, you just need to follow best practices, basically, to make sure that you don't get left behind. But is there, Alex, anything like, you're right, Google does not report on this data, right? You don't know if it is a voice search or if it is a normal search. We are even lucky, as of privacy laws today, that we know that somebody has ever visited our site, as a matter of fact, like that feels like a privilege right now. But what I think is gonna be interesting coming into voice search, as you said, is also adapting your websites to help get the sale or get the lead, because as you said, voice search can also be done from a device that you have in your house. As a result of that, most likely the answer is going to be read to you in some of these instances from your website. So you really need to have a very compelling, to the point answer, because if people are looking for something, they don't want a 2 minutes answer. They want a quick answer, quick question, quick answer. So it's kind of a balancing act, right? How much do I write to provide an answer to that question, but at the same time, how do I write it to turn that interest into a prospect for me? So that's kind of a fine line, right?
And that's where the experiment without that's where the experiment based on a hypothesis that you can't really sort of measure success on it, sort of you're going down a rabbit hole that you know you you need to almost run as an MVP where you sort of minimal viable for those that don't like abbreviations, but a minimal viable test where you sort of have some sort of success where like, okay, if I reached here, I deem this to be successful. I can continue down this rabbit hole. If I haven't sort of reached this type of success metric, I should get out of here. Because I think also the way that things are slightly differently structured is that I think voice enables and and enables, I would call it like conversational type of you have a conversation, and therefore the better I think flow you have in terms of website. Again, like this is best practice SEO. You write short, snappy sentences, not too long, and paragraphs that are never longer than X amount of words, and you have schema that are being highlighted that this is about this. So Google can actually already sort of give context to it, and then you'll also therefore better be added to a featured snippet. And once you have the featured snippet, I mean, either you get the click through or you don't. And often, if you do something local, and you most likely do this omni-channel, meaning you might do the digital marketing side to create awareness, to get people to either call you to do something or get the service of yours, or visit you to get your service or buy from you.
I agree now. And overall, like, what is funny is that I did a lot of research prior to this episode. I'm sure you did too, to kind of see what other people are saying. And it was funny that every article that would talk about here is how to win voice search in 2024. You go and read the article, take care of your technical side of the SEO, make sure your content is good. I was like, yeah, I knew that. So it's basically a new fancy way to say you need to keep doing the same thing, just answer a little bit more questions. Make sure that you provide, like, to think like the user, what they could ask to their phone, and literally have content for that, right? That is valuable, and keep doing your SEO.
I mean, I think it actually has very much to do with how you write that content as
Yeah,
well. So it is like there are few people that have, the gap of writing as they speak in a very comprehensive way that sort of encapsulates it, say it just in a couple of words.
yeah.
And I think it's these type of websites that will sort of lead the way in voice, if they've done everything that you just said. They've done the technical side right. they
Yeah.
have this they have the schema, and yeah, they're open to it.
No, that makes sense, and I feel, Alex, it basically goes down to having a proper strategy. They should have had also last year. Is there anything that you feel might hinder potentially, like, appearing on voice search? To me, honestly, I think that the only thing that could hinder, if you write content that is not relevant, or content that is not literally answering really a question. Other than that, I think that it's, again, best practices, right? There is nothing that you can do that could harm you from the standpoint.
Per se, I mean, not at all. Um, and it's actually more. Do you want? I think SEO is. I guess like if we start going down to KPIs and success, what is really success of SEO? And often when one talked to both internally when I've been in house or like actually been running the marketing team, it's always been the amount of clicks coming from organic or SEO. That's been like the most important. And, and to me nowadays, but all sorry, and then also like on agencies, this in the same way. I mean, I keep hearing the same, but actually, it's driving the right type of audience via SEO, which means that you don't want to per se create vanity because organic traffic is organic traffic, but the right organic traffic is what you want.
Yeah,
Meaning that's why you want to appear on the right type of keywords in voice. You want to appear on the right type of questions because it could appear somewhere down the line that you might be selling something that people with the help of voice
yeah.
actually have found you with, and they actually don't even read the website, and they they become a lead, and all of a sudden you sit with a humongous problem with a clogged up
Yeah,
um, lead pipe with just bad quality leads,
yeah,
and you might have a customer service department, that might be, and you have a discouraged customer service department because they only get to talk to people or reach out to people that actually don't want what you do.
yeah. No, that's similar to the call only ads, right? When people were
Yeah,
calling and then they would be like, "Yeah, I didn't call." What do you mean you didn't call? You click the button, you know. So no,
but
that makes sense. Is there like Alex any like
I,
any question that you are thinking about in regards to this topic? Something that you're still
I
researching?
mean, I'm still very fascinated about how we in these early days can sort of, because AI we have voice
Yeah,
as the advertiser or the receiver of how, because this is what fascinates me, like in today's world. I think we're back to permission marketing. All the things that you said are problems that we're not going to talk about today, they're still valid, and
yeah,
therefore we need to start treating the people that visits us with some sort of personal touch.
yeah.
And and is there anything that we would be able to pick up that reveals a bit more about them than if they were to come from anonymous computer with an IP?
Yeah, that's an interesting thought because at the end of the day, right? I think it's all about providing the right information because we are getting back to user initiated marketing. The user is the one that needs to make the first move, right? So all we
Yeah.
can do is to provide the most transparent, straightforward, and legit content we can to let them understand we are trustworthy, I feel.
Yep. So I mean, I I still believe it's a massive opportunity if you're running something local, because I mean hyper local SEO is extremely competitive, and if you're able to find if you're able to find those queries, and I mean there are certain tools out there
Yeah.
that could assist you, and that actually gives you relatively up to date stats in terms of what voice queries that are been asked.
And Alex, was funny that people call it local, hyper local, SEO, and they might make it look tiny. But sometimes we need to keep in mind that hyper local SEO can also be done in Manhattan, New York, where hyper local means you're targeting 6 million people. You
Yeah,
know, so people forget
exactly.
about.
And hyperlocal is a city, and I mean some people that are listening, they might live in a village that is 100 people and they know everyone. Others, I mean, just down the road here, 20 million people live in one city. I was like, yeah,
Exactly.
well,
And I mean, Iberlog, it's funny because like I come from one of those villages, 2,000 people. That's where I grew up. So if I'm thinking Iberlog SEO about my hometown, I'm like, I'm gonna be out of business in 10 days because I'm gonna run out of people in 10 days. But then you think about a city like New York, where Manhattan, a piece of the city, has 6 million people. So, okay, now you understand why it's so important to have a local SEO. You're competing with everybody basically. It's like 6 million people is like 10% of my country population. It's like it's a big
yeah.
piece of population. So yeah, no, Alex, I think we pretty much covered everything today. I think this is going to be a very interesting topic to keep in mind. Now you put something in my head, which is I want to know why Google or when Google is going to tell us what traffic is coming from search, what traffic is coming from voice. So you're going to be in my head for a while with that question, but I think it's very interesting.
But I mean, isn't the trend? I mean, okay, yes, let's see if Google allows us to see that information. but I think the more algorithmic we're getting in terms of bidding and say Google ads per se at least, um, we wouldn't know. And most likely we won't really see exactly what device that sort of is part of the consumer journey, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree with that, Alex. But do you have any final thoughts, or should we say thank you to all of the people that joined us today?
No, I mean, I think, I mean, one thing that is certain is that we'll be back with another interesting topic, and I think we've understood that SEO is an interesting topic to you all. But I mean, if there's anything particularly you guys want us to cover, reach out.
We
We're always keen.
we can cover everything except lottery numbers. We don't know the lottery numbers, so unfortunately, that's the topic that we're not experienced about. But Alex, thank you so much again for taking the time. I know it's almost, I should be getting toward the end of your day there, right?
The day never ends.
Fair enough. Like New York, I guess. But
But thank you, Rocco. It's a pleasure. I mean, these topics are great. Will be fun. Next one.
sounds good, guys. Have a good rest of your day, and
Thank you.
till next time.
Ciao.
Bye. Well, that was a fun. Okay, let me see here.